Great. Okay. Thanks for being here, everybody. Our speakers, we have over 30 people in the room, for sure. I'm not sure what the exact count is, but you have a good crowd of alumni or of current students, kind of dying to hear from some alum. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to introduce each of you, and if you would just raise your hand, so they can, well, they can see your names, but just so they can double see who you are. And then I'll start with the first question. Nicole Anderson graduated in 1999. She is now the CEO of Christopherson Properties. Cool, thank you for being here. Michael Fry, a 2018 graduate, there's Michael, Senior Project Manager, Creative Management with Walt Disney Studios and OMG 23. Monique Russell graduated in 2002. And Monique, she's the Global Communication Skills Coach for Clear Communication Solutions. And Emily Webster, also 2018. Hello, Emily. Media Relations Senior Specialist for Cargill. So thank you all for being here. We really appreciate your time and insights today. I'll come over here now. My first question is if you could tell us just briefly your major minor when you were here, and a couple key experiences that you had either in or out of the classroom, you know, volunteer organizations, things like that, or specific, you know, classroom experiences that you feel really helped give you a launch into your career and possibly what you're doing today. If you want to go ahead and start, Monique.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for having me. I am so excited. I love talking to students because I know when I was a student, I wish I had someone to share with me. When I was at St. Ben's, I was a communications major, but my story is a bit different because I left the Bahamas at the age of 17 and I came to Minnesota. It was a big culture shock, if you can imagine, warm sun and coming to the cold snow. And I actually only stayed for one semester. I ended up transferring over to St. Cloud State because after my first semester, I became a mom. And when I took time off, I continued my studies in communications. I focused on public relations and advertising as my graduate degrees and broadcast journalism as my undergrad. And the things that was really, really helpful for me coming from the Bahamas was really plugging into community. The Multicultural Student Services Department was very, very instrumental. In that first semester, I also got a job. I got a little beeper. Some of you may not remember what a beeper or a pager was, but it was when people would actually call you for help and you text them and you call them back. And so I immediately got into service. And I think that was a very good way for me to get acclimated, to build relationships, to connect. And actually what I am doing today, I'm a business owner and I help leaders and teams to communicate effectively at home and at work. In my journey, I did not become that international broadcast journalist at first because, hey, life happened and I needed to get a job. So my path was not the traditional one, but it allowed me to help executives and give them pointers and guidance. And then after that, I also took on the opportunity to teach communications at the university level. And then I started freelancing. And all of this made up the path of where I am today. So my encouragement today is to just keep in mind that you may have this really, really planned out idea for what's going to happen, but it may not happen exactly the way you want it. So just be encouraged, be open, be resilient, and plan for your next steps.
Thank you. Nicole.
Hey, you guys. I graduated in 99. It seems like forever ago, with a degree in communication, minor in psych with an emphasis in organizational psych. I was super interested in just learning about how things work once you get into the workforce and kind of psychology wise, how people dealt with each other and how that would help me in turn eventually go into leadership. So I graduated and then went to work right away in information technology. I was always fascinated with tech. Back then it was called IT, blah, blah, blah. Now there's all kinds of tech in everything. And loved it. So I got into a sales role, and I'll tell you about a couple of things and how my career at St. Ben's helped. In sales, you do a lot of negotiating, obviously. And so I had taken debate, which I didn't like, and I wasn't great at, honestly, but it did end up, as much as I didn't love the class, it did end up helping when you get into the real world and how you end up negotiating with customers. And that turned out actually to be one of my fortes. And then I also took a bunch of classes in public speaking, and all the way from just leading meetings and running an agenda and having to be able to command customers in turn with how you want things to go in your meetings. That public speaking helped all the way in that first role. And then I bounced around a little bit, and then I went to work for a company called Concur that was recently acquired by SAP. Not that recently, probably 5 years ago. And I started in account management. It was called client development there. And so I was running a customer base of global accounts. I was in the bigger sector around the world. And so, like I said, the negotiation and the public speaking led to being really comfortable working with customers and guiding them and even sort of challenging the way things were. And that's what landed me in my last role at Concur. I sort of challenge the system, if you will. And so we were meeting with customers, and we'd show up and bring all this data, lots of analytics, lots of problem solving. And I went back to leadership and I said, we're doing this wrong. And so challenge the system, ended up building a whole new department, which was wildly successful, called the Value Experience Group. And I definitely can relate that back to a lot of the classes that I took at St. Ben's in comm, and then also in organizational psych in terms of leading and developing teams. And then I recently moved to run our family business, Christofferson Properties.
And the comm major would have been relatively new when you were here, Nicole, correct?
I don't know. It was
okay.
Available. Yeah.
I think it was relatively new. Emily and Michael have different trajectories and had different experiences here as newer grads, and they both were in my intro to media writing class. They remember probably sitting there and me correcting their commas. Michael, if you wanna just start a little bit with some of your major minor key experiences while you were here, that kind of helped launch you.
Yeah, for sure. My major in school was communication. For a while there, I had a minor path towards Hispanic studies. I eventually dropped that, just kind of focused more on the communication side, because that's kind of where I saw myself going. Not to say that, it wasn't a valuable experience. I loved every, Spanish class I took there. Just kind of ended up how it was. I think my biggest, some of my most fond memories, I should say, were kind of, in the classroom, but also outside of the classroom in terms of, just kind of being involved everywhere I could. I was in Johnny Benny Media, actually with Emily, who was also there while I was there for the last couple of years. I worked on the stream team, which was in charge of live streaming sports events at St. John's. I rode on the crew team, various intramural sports. I worked in the fine arts programming department, so the theater department, in terms of front of house organization and management during the shows that went on at both St. John's and St. Ben's. For the first couple years, I wasn't as involved as I probably should have been. I think I was still kind of getting my bearings on a college campus coming out of high school. But I think as I progressed through, but mostly junior and senior year, I really found the value in, getting involved, meeting new people, making sure I was getting the most out of my experience, staying busy. I studied abroad in London in the fall of 2016. I actually didn't have any internships during the 4 years I was in college either, which I think is kind of, I feel like a lot of people are focusing on internships now, which is great. I actually didn't have an internship. My first job outside of college, well, I had jobs during the summer and whatnot, but my first actual professional position was after I graduated, which was a little bit different. So I think most important to me was, and what helped me get to, where I am today in more of a project management role, organization role, was staying busy, doing all of those things on top of school, making sure I was, helped me realize I could juggle multiple things at once, stay organized, found value in that, found out I really enjoyed that, coupled with, a really big interest in, the entertainment and film industry, which got me to eventually where I am today, with, Walt Disney Studios. So I think all of that coupled into one big experience kind of helped me push myself to where I am today.
Good. And Emily.
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Emily and I graduated in 2018 with Michael, and I double majored in communications and Hispanic studies. So a couple of things based on Dana's question. So inside the classroom, not just because she's here, but I did really love Dana's class. I think her class, her intro to media writing, and then the one after that, really took the theories and concepts that you learn in other communications classes and puts it in real life scenarios. Because I know sometimes it's difficult to wrap your head around how these theories and concepts will come to life in a career and in a day-to-day job. So I really enjoyed those real life scenarios that Dana created for us. It helped me at least get an understanding of what my career would look like and what my job would look like after graduation. Outside of classes, like Michael said, I was also involved in Johnny Benny Media. I think Michael and I were both there when Johnny Media was formed. It used to be these different clubs, and then it was wrapped under one organization when Michael and I were there. And I led the Johnny Benny campus news team. So we were the first to use that beautiful new studio that is connected to the library. And I also was involved in the St. Ben's Senate. So I think those two external experiences outside of the classroom, they really pushed me outside of my comfort zone, which helped because you're very much pushed out of your comfort zone when you start your professional career and you don't really know what's going on and you don't really know what you're doing. You learn on the job, and I think the Senate and Johnny Benny Campus News helped me get those experiences while at St. Ben St. John's.
Great.
Sorry, Dana. I was just going to say one other thing because everyone else touched on how they kind of got into their career as well. I actually had a coffee chat set up with someone, and I never really understood how those turned into other opportunities. I was a little skeptical, and then when I was talking to this person at Cargill actually to set up a coffee chat, she said, well, actually, instead of talking over coffee, I have an internship. Why don't you just come interview for the internship instead? So sometimes getting your foot in the door that way helps.
Good. Thank you. I know you all have had really different experiences and gone different directions. One of the things that I think would be helpful for the people sitting here right now is advice on, what they could do now to set themselves up for their next steps. And you've touched on those a little bit, but I think expanding on that a little bit, when you look back, what was really valuable, or what do you wish you had done, or what would you look for in a new grad you were hiring in a communications field? Anybody can start.
All right, so Great question. So what I feel you could do right now, and I know Nicole touched a little bit on the public speaking, definitely get into Toastmasters or, any additional speaking programs and get comfortable with it, because no matter where you go, you're going to need to be able to advocate for yourself and articulate your ideas and your concepts and be able to network with people. So when you really master that art of public speaking, it opens a lot of doors for you. And like when Emily was talking about the whole coffee chat thing and the networking, I feel right now you need to be on LinkedIn. Show of hands, how many of you are already on LinkedIn? Just a couple. Okay. This is what I'm talking about. So the rest of you that have not raised your hands, you need to have a LinkedIn profile today, right now, because this is how you're going to set yourself up to network. You can connect with alumni, people who've graduated from St. Ben's, people who have been in your high school programs, people that you've met just along the way, because it really is about relationship networking. And like I shared before, I became a mom. So my oldest son is 22. He graduated 2 years ago, and he got his first job because 1 year before he graduated, he set up his LinkedIn profile and he started building those relationships. So it puts you at a very strategic advantage when you start to build those profiles and start to reach out, and even globally. And then the third thing that I would say in terms of what you can do right now is travel. So travel helps to expand your opportunities. It helps to open up your eyes. One of the things that I absolutely loved was my study abroad trip. I went to study abroad to South Africa, and I regret not going on every other study abroad program offered, because the truth is, life happens, years go by, and you think you're going to travel later, but you put it off. And then it's much cheaper when you go as a group, when you take advantage of all the study abroad programs that the school offers. So travel, get your LinkedIn profile up, and really explore your personal development, especially in the area of public speaking.
Good. Thanks, Monique. And one thing I'd like to bring up to comm majors, Kelly Berg's Comm 342 Communicate in an Online Era class. One of the things you do in that class is either create your LinkedIn profile or finesse it. So just as an aside.
I took that
I'll
class.
go
I like
next.
it.
Yeah, I'll go next. I mean, I would totally echo everything Monique said. Travel for sure. Just get out there. Network. Even if it's outside of your comfort zone. I know Dana already threw me under the bus for being one of the first comps. I'm kidding, Dana, but no.
I'm older than you.
There used to be something, a career center. You guys have, I think it's XPD now. Reach out to people you don't even know. I mean, we used to do something called an informational interview. So even if you're not looking for an internship right now, say, hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee? Can you just tell me about what this role is about? There's so many jobs out there right now that there's something for everybody. And I would just encourage you to learn as much as you can about all of these different roles. And don't underestimate the power of learning what you don't like. I did what you guys did too. I was in Senate, and I wrote for the Record. I did a ton of intramurals. I mean, we were, a huge group of friends, and the group of friends that I graduated with, not exaggerating, we still keep in touch with, is like 40 to 50 people. And I use that network. Later in life, it benefits you too, just to have this great community at St. Ben's and St. John's. And I did an internship for the St. Cloud Times and thought that I wanted to be a writer. Well, they had me writing obituaries. So first of all, didn't love that. And then decided that I don't really like writing all that much. So I went on to interview a couple of times and had to write. And I thought, this isn't my jam. And that knocked out one big chunk of careers that I thought I would go after. So it was really valuable to me in that, okay, now I can move on to something I might try next, or I might like more. So don't discount something, even if you think you might like it and it didn't work. That's great. Now you know, and there's lots more runway to go. And again, just network, call me, we've got great networks of people that we work with, and don't hesitate to put yourself out there a little bit. Get on LinkedIn and maybe reach out to someone who you don't even know.
Like, for example, Monique Russell and Nicole Peterson and Emily Webster and Michael Fry. because you just kind of met them.
Yeah.
Emily and Michael, if you want, I mean, I think, am I right, that what you guys would really like to know, and to kind of build on what Monique and Nicole started talking about, like, what do employers look for, or what would you look for right now if you were hiring someone? In addition to what Nicole and Monique have already kind of talked about.
Yeah, I can go. I think the biggest thing that I look back on and wish I had done sooner, and I kind of already touched on it, and I think what is really, important to, speaking from my position, I guess I should say, is diversifying your skills and experiences as early as possible. So, I mean, it's never too late to get involved. I think especially specifically from a, in the film and entertainment industry, from the media side of that, or the media arm of that is, a super competitive industry, and it's super hard to stick out if you don't have a lot of experiences to pull from. And that's not to say they have to be like directly applicable experiences, because I know sometimes those are hard to come by, like internships and things like that. But being able to tell a good story, being able to coherently and confidently speak on behalf of yourself, like Monique was saying, and advocating for yourself, especially in an interview setting, and especially now when so many of them are virtual. That's another barrier you have to be able to speak across. It's extremely valuable, and it's something that I still work on every day at my job when I'm talking to people over Zoom and people that I've never met before. And it's kind of weird sometimes, but it's being able to pull from past experiences, and things like that really help you on your day-to-day, and especially stand out and get hired. I think, like I mentioned, I never had an internship during college. I was working at a car dealership every summer during college, and I still find things from that I use on a daily basis here, as weird as it sounds. So definitely use all the time and resources that you have at your disposal right now, because so many of them are free, and after college so many of them will not be free. So use it now, hone in on exactly what you want to do, even if it changes 50 times in the course of 3 months. Being able to at least knock things out, say yes I like that, no I don't like that. Now as you move forward, as you kind of refine where your career path is going to go.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to that is specifically in an interview setting, or as you're preparing to apply for internships, what I found useful and what I look for when conducting interviews is those experiences. And we've all kind of mentioned, getting involved on campus, and it does feel and sound cliche, but those experiences you get on campus is then what you'll be able to provide examples about in your interviews, because interviews are very situational basis, and they ask a lot of questions about specific experiences and examples that you can reference back to. So, the classic, tell me about a time when you X, Y, and Z, and then you would be able to pull on experiences that you had in those extracurricular activities. And then once you are a new employee, my biggest suggestion or tip would be to ask a lot of questions. I probably asked an absurd amount of questions when I started my career, but that's really how you learn. And there is no expectation that you know everything. Your college experience is just one step, and getting into the professional world is continuous learning. Yeah, it's just constant learning, and asking questions help you get the answers that you need to do your job effectively.
And, thank you all. I mean, I think we're hearing, take advantage of the things that are here. The record, you can write news articles, the kind you write for my class. If you're in my class, get them published. You're building a portfolio, and you're building your experience. Working at Johnny Benny Campus News, I mean, Emily put in God knows how many hours a week, okay? Emily is not a TV broadcaster. Emily is a communication specialist at Cargill, but I'm guessing those skills benefit you constantly, right? And, you know, Michael and Monique and Nicole all have, you know, good experiences. Like you were stream team, weren't you, Michael?
Yeah, yep.
Good. Before I continue with questions, anybody out here have a question, something you'd like them to talk about that would be beneficial to you?
Get that extra credit.
Right? Go after it. All right, 2 points. Going. Okay, here I go. So we're at a liberal arts college. Monique, I taught at St. Cloud State for a couple of years, by the way. So you went to more of a specialized school where they have a very big mass communication department, a big journalism major, a broadcast journalism major, kind of a different experience. But you did start here, and then you three, all liberal arts background, but there are some commonalities, and that's the skills that and mindsets that you develop while you're here that maybe at the time you don't realize, wow, this is really valuable. So could you talk a little bit about some of the things that from a liberal arts education that you have found yourself using throughout your career and now that maybe you knew, yeah, for sure, I'm gonna have to do this, or like the writing part or whatever, but also like, wow, I didn't really even think about that piece. Kind of a hard question.
Yeah, so definitely the writing is a big thing. I use it every single day. And I mean, before you wouldn't really see a lot of people talk about jobs that focused a lot on content writing. And I have a colleague who left his job and started a business just focused on content writing, writing blogs, writing articles, writing social media briefs, and he's doing very well. So if you do like writing, there are a lot of opportunities there for you. The other skills that I'm using daily is the journalism skills, because although I just had a short stint on the TV, I have to investigate on a daily basis. I have to question people on every week. I can either be doing a professional speaking engagement where I travel all over the world to speak to groups, or I can deliver training workshops or work privately or in a group setting doing coaching people on their communication skills. They want to get better working in their teams. I think it's $359 billion is what's spent every year in the US on conflict in the workplace. That's a huge number. So my liberal arts education has given me an advantage because I'm able to use the skills of listening, the skills of writing, people management. Another good resource is the World Economic Forum, which puts out their top 10 list of skills that you need to thrive in the future. And creativity is there, problem solving is there, resilience is there, emotional intelligence is there, and all of these things will set you apart. It's not just enough to know how to do the job. People sometimes bring me in when they have trouble with their employees and they want to help them work better together. So if you utilize the skills and the strengths that you have, and you ask questions, you guys better ask some questions, okay? So ask questions. And then also the other thing I'll say is time management. This is one of the biggest challenges that I see in the workforce, especially for those that are just starting. You have that college feel and you don't really have to be as structured. You might cram for your exam and then, you're good, or you stay up all night and then you're good. But in the workforce, that's not sustainable. So I would say definitely when I'm looking to work with individuals that are on my team, I have a few people, 6 people working for me. I look for those time management skills to see that you have that, ability to get the job done in the time that is allotted. And I know that my background, my liberal arts background, is what has positioned me right now. In the beginning, it didn't feel that way because it was very hard for me to find the job that I wanted. You needed to have the internship experience or prior experience, but how could I have that when I just graduated? And then, it's the vice versa, ping pong. And the truth is too, starting in journalism at the bottom, you're not making any money. And I was like, what? I did all of this. I need to make some money. But everything happens for a reason. And so developing that skill of time management, of listening, of networking, collaborating, those will definitely set you apart, because that's the era and the trend that we're moving in right now in the workforce.
Monique, I could not love you any more than I love you right this minute.
I totally agree. Great thoughts, Monique. And I'm going to tag and echo on a lot of those. We talked a little bit about public speaking already, and all the way just from my dad drilling it in my head when I was little and how to organize a speech. You tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you told them, to all of what you guys are learning now in class, but then also outside of class, and how to get yourselves into some opportunities where you can do some public speaking and practice. A big one I would say that tags onto liberal arts is creativity. And I think sometimes that gets overlooked. My creative outlet when I was in school was pottery. I spent a lot of time in the pottery studio, and I think whether it's literal arts like that, actual arts, or just thinking creatively when you're in a role and thinking outside of the box. You guys are already ahead of a lot of people just by being at St. Ben's and St. John's and getting the academic education that you are. But don't underestimate the power of how you think and how to challenge things and use your voice. That was part of how I was able to have success at Concur, was thinking this isn't, sure, you guys have been doing it the same way for the last 13 years, but it's not working. So let's try to figure out how to change it, and just figuring out different ways and using my voice to bring it forward to leadership and say, we got to mess this up a little bit and start over and try to be more valuable to customers. So I would say, don't forget about the creative outlet that you guys all have and all of the creativity that you have inside of you. And kind of last, in terms of what you look for in people, all of that stuff, and Monique mentioned a good one too, emotional intelligence. Think about how you are and how you react. And I think mindfulness is kind of a hot topic right now, but in managing people and guiding teams and things like that, it's super easy to get distracted always. I mean, we're always doing 12 things at once. And I would say, check into what, if you don't know much about it, what mindfulness is and how to be mindful of how you are and aware of how you are as you present yourself, what your brand is, that emotional intelligence around how you're coming off as a team member, all of that kind of fun stuff, and dig into mindfulness and how to maybe bring it forward to the workplace, as you need to focus on things while there's 40 gazillion other things happening at the same time. So,
thank you, Nicole. One of the reasons I ask you guys to put your phones away, as anybody who has the phone in front of them is likely to be distracted by their phone. And if you're looking at your phone, that is what you're doing. You're not really listening. You can't really multitask. And so learning to focus, that was a hard thing. That was probably the hardest thing for me post-college, is learning to focus. But I mean, those are really, really good points, because you're always going to have a lot of things. And honing in on that one thing you're doing right now is that's a great piece of advice. Michael, you were going to go.
Yeah, I was just going to, I mean, they both said it better than I will, ever dream of saying. But what I was going to say is, I think from a liberal art, from a communication perspective, I should say, and I'm assuming a lot of you in here are probably communication majors or maybe global business or something of the sort, and maybe not, that's totally fine too. But I think, speaking solely from my communication perspective at St. John's and St. Ben's, is so much of what we did in the classroom was learning through doing, learning through experience. So much of it was discussion based. It really made you participate and critically think. You weren't just, jotting down notes. Someone wasn't just presenting at the front, and you weren't just expected to memorize things. I mean, there was a little bit of that, but it wasn't what it was really all about. And then couple that with, at St. John's and St. Ben's, such a big emphasis on community. And like I keep saying, getting involved really allows you to put what you're actually, critically learning in the classroom to practice real time in the various things you're doing on campus, whether that be like my creative outlet was film. I was helping, a friend who actually still owns this film production company that I helped him kind of start in college, and he's down in Chicago now, and he's very successful. And it was something that we were able to just kind of mess around with on campus. I was on stream team. It was things that, just getting involved and being able to put into practice what I was learning in the classroom, real time with these resources that I had. I think those two things that are like pillars of liberal arts were invaluable to, my experience on campus and as a student there, for sure.
I would just add, I definitely agree with everything everyone has already mentioned. The one thing that I would say I use the most every day is critical thinking, and being able to look at that broader picture. So for example, in my job today, I am a media relations senior specialist at Cargill, and the specific work and function that I support is our sustainability and corporate responsibility work. So with being such a large company across 70 different countries and working on such a hot topic like sustainability, there are always issues. And so being able to help mitigate and address the issues that have already happened with those critical thinking skills, and also, put things out to the media proactively to help proactively mitigate issues that we know are coming, I think is really the main skill that I use every day. And then also knowing that this release that I send out today is about this one specific topic, but how does it ladder up to the broader picture of what Cargill does, and always being able to, just have that broader scope that I think I really learned in the classroom at St. John's.
Before I go on, would anybody like to impress our alumni guests and ask a question? Hooray, Sam.
So people always ask me like what job I'm gonna have with the common major, and I always tell them like beats me, I have no idea. But
That is a good question.
how did you like narrow down what kind of, because compared to like a nursing major, you graduate and you're probably gonna be a nurse.
That's a really good question, Sam.
How did you like narrow down what part of communication you guys wanted to do?
And kind of what do you do?
Yeah, I can quick start here because I was just thinking about that before I even hopped onto the Zoom. I was like, how do I explain that? It's a very good question. I think, you do a little, you do a lot of narrowing down based on, classes you take, and you have a really good choice of classes to take and things to do. I think the weirdest thing for me was realizing how much of that I still do after I graduate. Kind of based on the experience that I've talked about with Stream Team, I was convinced junior and senior year that I wanted to do something in sports. I love sports, I still do. Just because I was around them all the time at school, growing up, things like that. Graduating, I still had no idea what I was going to end up doing. I just kind of thought, you know what, I might try something in sports. So I ended up at a sports technology startup in downtown Minneapolis that was specifically focused on designing fan engagement mobile apps for, specifically tennis. I knew nothing about tennis, but I got the job, realized, I love what I'm doing from a professional perspective. Maybe sports from a professional standpoint isn't something I actually want to pursue. Maybe I just like watching them more than I actually like, working on it. It was a weird mix of like my personal life and my hobbies with my actual work, which, fast forward, and that's what I'm doing now, but I just didn't think sports was right for me. So I moved on to a media agency again in Minneapolis called Hayworth Marketing and Media. I turned to advertising logistics, which was, again, sort of a project management role. And that's what I really liked at my previous job, just not really the sports side at work. So it was assigned accounts, really focusing on advertising from a digital side. So like social media, digital display media, out of home media, so billboards that were put outside. I worked on like the Bear Paint account, which, like Bear Paint, I don't know how to kind of describe that. You see it at Home Depot, Alaska Airlines, accounts like that, which, you know, again, I really liked, wasn't totally my jam. I really loved, again, the advertising, project management side. But I really had this itch to get involved again with a really big interest of mine, which was film, entertainment. I grew up loving Disney. I went to Disney World like 5 times as a kid. It was an absolute blast. Was really, you know, blessed to be able to do that. So I went on LinkedIn. That's actually how I got all of my jobs, and found OMG23 through a past coworker at Hayworth, who is there now. So OMG23 is the entertainment branch of Omnicom Media Group, which is a massive global media, you know, conglomerate, specifically dedicated to Walt Disney Studios and its various, you know, subsidiaries. So that's like Marvel Studios, Pixar Animation Studios, Lucasfilms, like Star Wars, things like that, 20th Century Studios. So where I am now, and I, you know, leveraged that connection from a previous job to get this job a little bit. My role as the senior project manager on that Walt Disney Studios creative management team is essentially leading the digital media execution for any of these Walt Disney Studios film releases, you know, whether it be a theatrical release like some of you may be seeing advertisements for the Black Panther movie that comes out in like 9 or 10 days. A Disney Plus release that I was just working on was that Hocus Pocus 2 movie, Turning Red, a Pixar movie, things of that nature. So kind of helping lead the digital marketing execution specifically from a social and display standpoint is kind of what I'm doing now.
A little more gritty, Michael, what does that mean? Like specifically, what, you know what I mean? Like, what do you do?
You know, I ask myself that every day.
This is the hardest thing to explain every single time, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, what do you, when you say project management, what do you mean? When you say leading the team? Huh?
Literally spreadsheets. Yeah. I mean, it's almost all spreadsheets. So if you're not comfortable with those, get comfortable with them. So picture it like this. There's a specific film title and Disney is, you know, we got to push this movie out to the world. We want to get butts in seats at the theaters to, you know, enjoy this great movie that we're putting out. There's the strategy side of a media plan to, you know, how are we going to advertise this out to the world? Specifically more that North America region is what we're focused on, at least what I am. And then my job is the actual implementation of that strategy from a digital media side. So all the creative that comes in from the creative agency that we're working with from Disney, pushing that out to, you know, the various publishers and partners that we're working with to advertise that specific film release. So I'm kind of like the middleman, the traffic light, trying to make sure, you know, everything gets from point A to point B to make sure there's a successful implementation of the media plan to advertise for this movie, if that makes more sense. I know it's kind of a lot. I've never really successfully explained it in a way that didn't leave people like more confused. So I'm sorry, but hopefully that helped.
Well, the creative team creates the advertisements. Somebody creates a social media post. Somebody does the news releases that go up, make announcements to media. You make sure they all go where they're supposed to go. Correct?
Yep. On time, on budget, things like that. Yep, exactly.
Oh, budget. Emily, would you explain what you mean when you say media? We're about to learn what media relations is in my class. It's a big thing in a lot of communication jobs. Could you explain what that means in terms of what you do?
So I'm sorry, just so I understood correctly, you basically want me to explain my job?
Explain your job, and while you explain your job, explain what media relations is.
Oh, okay, cool. Sorry. So yes, as I mentioned, I'm on Cargill's media relations team, and Cargill is a privately held company still. The Cargill family still is, you know, it's a privately held, the family's still involved. So with a privately held company, we have different like rules, for lack of a better word, of how much we need to share externally. Public companies they have to be very transparent, etc. So historically, Cargill didn't really say anything. So a couple of years ago, and we didn't want to the team never really wanted to share anything externally. So a couple years ago, they wanted to change that and start being more transparent, especially because they were getting lots of negative pushback from NGOs. And so like non-government organizations, and they stood up this media relations team. And when I was brought onto the team, I was the third person to join the team, and now we're a team of like 12 or 15, and we have people sitting all around the globe. Some of us have our focus is on our specific region, and then there's others like me who my focus is on a particular function or business. And so what media relations is to me, maybe Dana will want to correct me afterwards.
Lots of definitions.
But basically, we work every day to share proactive stories externally with reporters to help boost the company's reputation. So that might be distributing press releases about a specific announcement, or a new business venture or a Med JV. It might be pitching reporters at Bloomberg or the Wall Street Journal or the Star Tribune, stories to speak with our leaders on various different topics. So for mine, it would be sustainability and what sustainability programs we have to help making our supply chain more sustainable. Or it might, so that's the proactive, positive part of it. The other side of it is those issues that I talked about. So, we get lots of questions around net zero and deforestation. And if anything, unfortunately, if there are fatalities that happen on the job, things like that. We've had geese fly out of the sky onto almost hit an employee once at one of our facilities. So it really runs the gambit of what issues we come across every day. But when an issue does come, we would then, draft a statement and respond to any media inquiries that we get. So I'd say, headline, media relations is really working with media outlets to help share our story externally with their readers.
Great, thank you.
Does that work, Dana?
Yes, it's just really hard to be, because Sam was asking, what do I say about what I can do? And it's really hard to nail the concreteness sometimes.
Yeah.
I feel like I understand what you two do a lot better, do you agree, than what these two do? But now I understand, now it's more clear what you two do also. But, what you guys do is a lot more, I think, understandable. Does anybody have another question or otherwise I'll just have Monique and Nicole talk a little more? Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious to what motivates you all and how you find motivation within your job positions.
Okay, let's let Monique and Nicole take that one first. What motivates?
Ooh, good question. I get motivated by other people's energy. I get motivated, the pandemic was not great for me. Even though my job was primarily remote for years, we still would get together, we'd connect like this. And staying busy, it's like the slogan, if you want something done, ask a busy person. It just kind of keeps you going. I get motivated from seeing the success of the team that I'm leading or a project go through. We set a goal one year, and this does the public speaking goal too, but it was, we want to be on stage at Ignite, rolling out our program to our whole company, which was like a ton of people. It was like 300 people. It was really exciting. And so we got that rolling, and by the end of the year, we did it. That was super fun and really motivating. So just seeing that success and seeing my team have success. I was also really motivated by working with customers, and that can answer a little bit of the prior question too, just with how do you know what to do when you have a major in comm? And then I always thought I wanted to meet with customers and interview people, and I wanted to be a writer for a magazine or a newspaper because I could go really understand what was all about happening in somebody's world or whatever. Well, it turns out I didn't like writing. So even though I got to talk with someone and get to know someone better and understand a customer or whatever, that was not the right thing. And so to answer the role about how do you figure it out, don't worry about failing. You guys have a ton of runway. Don't worry about getting in the wrong job. Don't stress out. You have a million jobs available. I mean, like this whole panel has like really cool jobs. So find what you love more than anything. And then to go back to your question, that'll motivate you. If you get in something you love, that in and of itself will motivate you. Don't waste time on something you hate doing.
Good question. Monique, would you like, we have 2 minutes
sure.
left. You can be our parting words.
Okay, sure. But Michael, I need to talk to you because, once upon a time I was an actress. And so, I need to get the hookup. Hello. I need to get be acting again. Motivation. Oh gosh, this is such a great question, but I am motivated by setting my goals and achieving them. And the thing about it is, I love this question so much because I think sometimes it's very easy to get caught up in social media trends or looking at highlight reels of others or get into a comparison of I'm not where I feel I should be, which I have experienced as well. And so I will say what really gets me excited is because I get to work in my strength zone at least 90% of the time. When I am working with my clients, I always tell people, you want to shoot for that 70 to 80% of your strength zone. This is something that you're really great at. And then that other 20, 30%, you want it to be a stretch. So when you're able to work in your strength zone, for example, graphic design is not my jam at all, okay? At first I said, I just want to be a well-rounded communications person. I want to be great at editing. I want to be great at marketing. I want to be great at PR. I want to be great at graphic design. Big mistake. And so my colleagues who were extremely great at graphic design, they could do in 2 hours what would take me 2 days. Very frustrating, very demotivating when you're in that situation for a very long time. But because I love training and I love speaking, I love networking. If I have a role that I get to do the things that I'm good at, that helps me to stay motivated and it helps me to do a better job. And then the things that I don't like so much, like all the Excel spreadsheets that Michael loves to do, I can add 20% of that stuff and then balance it. The other thing I will say is you might find yourself in a situation where you don't feel motivated. You don't feel like you enjoy your job. And sometimes you need to push through, especially if it's something that's new that you're learning. Sometimes you need to push through until you get to that point where you're mastering. There's this thing called the S curve. We first start with this new concept. We work for a few years, we get mastery at it, and then we get to that top of the S. It feels like, oh, I'm not even being challenged. I'm bored. It's time for me to try something new. So when you get to that bottom of that new job or skill that you're trying, don't just, say, you know what, forget it. You might have to push a little through, especially if it's an area of your strength. And then you get to that place of mastery where you feel like, man, I'm on top of the world. I can do this with my eyes closed. And you bring more value to your team because now you've developed your skill in a way that helps yourself and the team to grow. So my encouragement is don't get too caught up on motivation. I think it was Jim Rohn who said motivation is like bathing. You need to do it every day. So if you feel low in some moments, know that it's temporary. It's like the rain. It doesn't rain forever. It doesn't last forever. But when you do get started with something new, don't just throw in the towel and give up. Push a little bit if it's in your zone of genius or your strength zone, and then get to that place of mastery.
Great. Thank you all so much for being with us today. Great to meet you all. Well, I know you too. Great to meet you too. Thank you a lot. It's really, really helpful to hear from you, and you gave us some really, really great information.
Find us on LinkedIn.
Find them on LinkedIn.
Please do.
Thanks, guys.
Everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.